What's going on, everybody? Mark Green here from diabetesdietguide.com, where we're talking all things diabetes and healthy living. Now, continuing with our Facebook group comments theme, we are answering your questions, and today we are looking at cravings and how to prevent them. Now, I know myself, cravings are my downfall. They are the difference between reaching that six-pack milestone and dad bod. And I'm sure it's the same for many other people. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on in your body and in your brain that makes you want those foods, and what you can do about it in order to prevent it happening and also to overcome it. But let's jump into the video and get onto the topic for what you're here for. Okay, now let me tell you a story. And this story is about monkeys. So you might be thinking, what's a monkey got to do with cravings? So once upon a time, I think it was Cambridge University, some scientists studied monkeys to look at whether or not they could condition them to actually induce cravings. Now, the way they did this is they linked up receptors to their brain and studied their reward center, or their dopamine response. So dopamine is the feel-good hormone. Now, what they initially did was they gave the monkeys a treat. So they gave them some juice and studied the brain activity. And what they found was giving them the juice stimulated a dopamine response, which made them feel good. And over time, that feedback loop tricks their brain, or trains their brain to continually want that juice. It makes you feel good. From an evolutionary perspective, it's kind of theorized that this helped us seek out high calorie nutritious food, because back then we didn't know when we were going to get our next meal. Whereas nowadays, you know, we can literally get food on tap 24 hours a day, and it usually comes in the form of something like chocolate or ice cream, as opposed to good quality cuts of mammal meat, fish. So slightly different from back then to how it is now, but it's the same process. So the monkeys got the juice and it lit up their reward center, dopamine was released, and they wanted more and more and more of it. So the brain seeks it out. Then what they started to do with the monkeys is each time they gave them the juice, they shone a light. So they shone a light at the monkeys just before they were going to get the juice. So over time, they started to train the monkeys to say that the light equals juice. And again, they started to look at the dopamine response in their brains. And what they found were two findings. Now, you probably know where the first one's going. The light shining actually stimulated the dopamine response. So actually just building the habit of shining the light was as good as actually getting the juice. But then what they really found, which was a bit of an interesting finding and unexpected, was that when they got the juice, the dopamine response was actually subdued. So the light had replaced the actual treat itself. Now, they were able to undo this when they removed the light, and over time, that dopamine response subsided. So you can untrain it. Now, obviously, I know this is a fairly anecdotal story, and I'm never a big fan of animal studies, but it is an interesting finding. And actually, when we think about it, there's probably a lot of things we can extrapolate to humans, and it's something I see with my patients and clients a lot, and it's something I work with people when I'm seeing clients one-to-one and doing group sessions and all sorts of other things, that I hear time and time again about those cravings. Now, the reason we can see this at work in our lives is because we can literally break down times of the day when the cravings start to kick in. Very rarely do I wake up and want some chocolate. And that's because I've not built the neural pathways or the dopamine response to want it at that point. Whereas at lunch, when I'm sat down and taking a break, or after dinner, when I fancy a little something sweet, that's my danger zones. And that's because over time, I have built the habits of associating those times of the day with having something sweet, to the point where I will even eat it, even if I'm stuffed. So I don't need that stuff. If you ask me to have a chicken breast, I wouldn't want it. I'm full up. But you offer me some chocolate or some ice cream, absolutely I want it. And it's probably the same for many of you. So we've literally trained our brains to associate that task or that time of day or that thing with the reward. Now, what can we do about that then? So there's a few different things we can do. First and foremost, we can cut out the treat. So that is the reward. So if we cut out the treat, we no longer associate that behavior with the treat because we've lost the treat. Obviously that can be quite restrictive for some people, and also it might not be everyone's preferred choice because ultimately you want the treat. But, you know, if we're talking from a weight loss perspective, there needs to be a bit of give and take. You can't literally have everything that you want and still lose weight unless you're accommodating with exercise or other sacrifices in the diet elsewhere. The other thing you can do is change the stimulus. And how often have you noticed, perhaps you've done this, where rather than sitting down on the couch where you usually have something sweet, it's a nice evening, you go for a walk. And actually just one loop of the block or a half-hour walk, you come back and actually you don't fancy something. Even tonight, rather than having my usual treat, I've come up and started filming a video. Do I want a snack? Not really. And I doubt I will tonight because actually I've changed the stimulus. I've done something different that's broken the association. Now obviously, hearing my accent, I've actually realized that a lot of my viewers come from the US. Weirdly, I say a lot of my viewers, all 40 of you. Point is, in the UK, it can get very dank and cold in the winter, very dark in the evenings. So those are the danger times. You can't always be going out for walks necessarily with that weather. But you can always do something else. You could perhaps take up a hobby, try and learn a language, tidy the house, whatever it might be. Just change the stimulus of what usually triggers that initial response. Or you can try to have the treat but eat less of it. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a snack or a treat. Definitely not. Food is there to be enjoyed, and you know, for all the bad it does in terms of obesity and weight gain and heart disease and diabetes, some of this food is actually really nice and it can be a social and quite an enjoyable experience. We have engineered food to taste brilliantly. Just like we've engineered planes to fly, just like we've engineered trains to drive fast, and cars and everything else in modern society. For whether it's good or bad, that's up for debate. But the point is, you can still have a little bit, just eat less of it, but the hard bit is doing that because you always want more, I find. That it locks you in, that reward center's lighting up, the dopamine's flowing. It's very hard to just have 2 bites of chocolate, you usually want the bar. So that takes us on to number 4, which is try a substitution method. So it might be that usually you have a chocolate bar, which is going to be somewhere in the region of 250 calories, depending on the size of it. So you could try and have a smaller chocolate bar, maybe say a 2-finger Kit Kat or a fudge bar, just takes the edge off. And actually it's only going to be about 120 calories then. Much less of a dent in your calorie overall calorie allowance, or if you're following a diet plan or a slimming group, less sins, less points, whatever you want to call them. The other thing you could do is actually change the product entirely. So rather than chocolate, you have like skinny popcorn, which might be sweet and salty. Just takes the edge off, but bags can be about 90 calories, and actually it takes you a while to eat it. So it has time for that sweet craving to be satisfied and the craving to pass. So there's just a few things that you can do, but hopefully understanding the cravings is just one step in the process of overcoming them. Because if you understand it's physiological and you find yourself staring into the fridge, not quite knowing what you want, you can't put your finger on it, that's a craving. If someone said to you, here's more of the dinner, here's a chicken breast, here's some pasta, and you say, I don't want it, that's a craving if you're still looking for something else. So understanding why it's happening is a really good stepping stone. And then there's a few different things that you can do. I've never been a big fan of the kind of cliches of just have a glass of water. Yes, it might fill you up, but ultimately the craving's kicking in for a reason. And frankly, water ain't gonna cut it. So, I hope you found that useful, guys, and I hope that answers some of the questions that we got in the Facebook group. Remember, head over to the blog, diabetesdietguide.com. We're working with people all the time addressing these kinds of issues, working for weight management, type 2 diabetes management, type 1 diabetes, and glucose stability. It's what we do, and we're here to help you with the free information on the blog, or if you need an extra helping hand, the programs and consultancy, which is now amalgamated for the same price of only £90. So, let us know if you liked the video in the comments, like and subscribe if you want to see more of us, and hit the notifications if you want to know when I post. See you later, guys. Have a good one.